Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listeners. It is a lovely day here in suburban Chicago. Though the clouds are out, the temperature is not too bad, which is surprising for mid-July. Usually it's unpleasantly hot, so I'm happy about that. Yeah, and generally we're doing okay. So today I thought I would continue catching up with the many games that I've played since I took my break, taking a couple weeks off. The main issue is that I miss out on like 3 different Shooting from the Hip episodes, so it takes me a while to catch up. With that said, it's time for Shooting from the Hip triple shot. So, Shooting from the Hip is a episode where I review, in brief, 3 games that I've tried for the first time recently. The whole idea is these are not in-depth reviews. I have not played these games well enough to really be able to say whether they're great or not. I'm just giving you first impressions. So, let's jump in, shall we? The first game on my list is Qwirkle. Now, Qwirkle is a classic game from 2006. It was designed by Susan McKinley Ross and is massively popular. This is one of those games that you certainly could find at a house of somebody who wouldn't consider themselves a gamer, so to speak, or isn't deep in the hobby. This game was sold at mass market stores, and it's pretty interesting. It is an abstract game, of course. So the way the game works is that you have these square tiles with one of 6 shapes on them, and each shape there are also 6 colors. And when you're playing, you are trying to get a mix of these shapes in these different colors and lay them out in a grid. And so the way the game works is basically whenever you play a tile onto the grid, you can either play one tile to add to a row or column, or you can play multiple tiles that all add to a row or column. So here's the thing, each row and column has to share one attribute. So for instance, if you have a red triangle, you can make a row with all red things and a column with all triangle things. But here's the crucial part. You may never repeat the non-shared thing. So if you have a row of all triangles, since you put a red one in, there can't be another red one in that row. Same thing if you have a row of all red things and you have a triangle as the first one you do, you can't put another red triangle in that row. The way the game works is on your turn, you're going to add a tile to the grid and you get a point for every thing in the row or column or both that tile is part of. You also, instead of adding one tile, you're allowed to add multiple tiles as long as they share one quality. So you can basically start another row or column, but it also still has to connect with something that's already in the grid. You get extra points. I think it's 6 points or 5 points for up to 5, and then if you get a 6th thing, then you actually get 12 points because you got a Qwirkle if you put down the 6th one in a row or column. And that's the way the game goes. You play, you refill your hand to however many tiles you get, and you keep going, taking turns until everyone has played all their tiles, or until someone has to pass. Maybe until the bag runs out and you get one more turn. I don't remember the end trigger, but you get the idea. Qwirkle is a classic for a reason. It is a fun game. It's easy to teach, easy to learn. There's a lot of strategy if you've played a lot before. Like when I played it, I was playing with a couple people, one in particular who had played Qwirkle a lot, and she decimated us for points because she played before. Or I'm bad at games, or both. So, or she's very good at games. That one could also be. Might be all those things. So that's Qwirkle, a delight. I got my copy for $2 at Goodwill. If you can find a copy at Goodwill, I do recommend it. The next game on my list to talk about today is Succulent. Succulent is a game from designer J. Alex Qwirkle and publisher Renegade Games. Now, Qwirkle and Renegade have a long history of releasing games together. The first game that I know of that J. Alex Qwirkle released was World's Fair 1883, which is an interesting little puzzler. Then on top of that, or after that, he released a couple other games, and then he had Sentient, which was in my collection for a while. It ended up leaving, not because I didn't like it, but because it was never getting played because my wife didn't like it. And then finally, Succulent is the newest one from Renegade Games that I got to try. Succulent is themed around the idea of planting a succulent garden or collecting succulents. The idea is that you have this garden that you're planting, and each turn you're going to take a tile that has some a particular kind of succulent on it and some symbols, and you get to do stuff based on the symbols that are next to the tile that you placed on your board. As you place stuff on the board, you're going to cover things up, and you get to do stuff based on that cover, those coverings, the things you cover. And then it's a set collection game, along with there are some goals that you're aiming for and so on. Like many JLX covering games, this one has a relatively simple turn process, a relatively simple set of decisions to make, but the way they interconnect results in some interesting complexity. There is a fascinating moment where you are making an effort to cover up one of your quadrants, because once you've done that, then you get to take a new card. And so you're constantly sort of thinking about, when am I going to take a new card? Which card am I going to take? Where am I going to connect it so that I can get the most points as I lay more things down? The game this most reminded me of, oddly, was Gingerbread House, perhaps because all the tiles are 2 squares, the same as Gingerbread House, and you get points for putting the tiles on top of icons, just like Gingerbread House. That's where the similarity ends, though. I think the theme in Succulent is kind of boring. I mean, it's pretty, but I mean, if you aren't into succulent plants, then it's just a set collection game. It's almost abstract, which I guess is true for most games, but the theme didn't really do much for me there. Like I said, it is pretty, and it was moderately fun to play. I would recommend you give it a try if you get a chance. I'm not sure I would recommend you go out of your way to buy it. I think there are better abstract set collection games. Off the top of my head, Gingerbread House is better. Heck, even Qwirkle, maybe. But I still had a good time and would encourage you to try it if you get a chance. That's Succulent from Renegade Games. Finally, the third game that I want to talk about today is called Riverside. Now, this was a game that was on my radar for a while, ever since I heard Rado mention it on the Rado Runs Through podcast. It was released last year at Essen, but it's only now making its way over to the States. This is a roll and write game from the Ostbees, and these are some of the designers of Trails from Tucana and Avenue, and I think that they helped with, it's not the Ostbees, it's the Svenssons, either Svensson and Osmund Svensson. It's Osmund that I think was involved in Trails from Tucana. But this is a flip and write game in which you are a tour guide operator on board a large tour ship. Now each player is a tour guide operator on the same ship. So the ship is going, and then each day when the ship stops, as a tour guide, you can try to recruit people to come on your boat and go on your tour that you're hosting. You have a player board that has a variety of different categories on it, each category being a different kind of tour. There's a whale tour, there's a polar bear tour, there's a brewery tour, and so on. I think there's 6 different ones. As you recruit people to your tours, they fill up the seats marked on your sheet, and as you fill up rows, you get bonuses. So there's some decision making to be, do I fill up the early rows so that I can get those simple bonuses, or do I pile people into the later rows, which you're allowed to do, but then it takes a while to get the bonus because you don't get the bonus until the row is complete, and those later rows have more people in them. So there's a kind of give and take there that you have to worry about. Other than that, it is not too different from your standard Gauntschon Clever style roll and write game, because you are resolving the rolls that you get and you're marking off things on your sheet. There are a couple places, however, where the game is really different. One of them is that there are 2 points, a midpoint of the game and the end point of the game, where you have the option of scoring these stave churches, they're called. And the other things that you score, you get to score based on how well you've done. The stave churches score based on how well you've done on everything. So it's an interesting push and pull. Do you decide to go for the stave church on the 2 options that you have it, or do you continue progressing up the line with these other things? It seems like kind of a no-brainer that you would go with the stave churches, but I didn't actually get that many points for them, so maybe it's not. The other thing that I found particularly interesting, and in fact the real highlight of the game, is that the shared board, which determines how you might resolve the dice each round by having people go on these different tours, is randomized. So the shared board in the middle is made up of, I think, 14 tiles with 2 end tiles as well. And when you play the tiles out, you shuffle them up and then deal them out. So each round, the tiles in the middle are in a different setup. And so one game you might easily be able to lean into polar bears early. Another game, you might not have any opportunity for polar bears till the very late part of the game. There are these cross connections, so you're not only stuck on the side of the route that you are on, but you could go through one of the canals to the other side of the route, which effectively doubles the decision space for you. And then there is some really interesting bonus multiplication. I said this was in the style of Ganz Schön Clever, so that means as you finish rows, you're getting bonuses, which can help you finish other rows. But then you also get this element where you get points based on how many rows of the particular color you have finished, or the exploration type, and you get points for that. Yeah, as far as roll and rights go, I'm not sure Riverside is going to be a really memorable one that people will jump up and clap for it later, but I think as it makes its way into the marketplace, it is a really solid outing in the genre. I really like the way that the path board changes each game, and I like the combo-rific nature of it. It's definitely going to stay in my collection for a while, and I hope to play it a bunch. So that's Riverside, and I did not catch the name of the publisher in that one. Well, those are 3 new games that I tried recently, all of them interesting. I don't know if any of them would land on the I would definitely go out and buy it now thing. I guess Riverside probably I would buy. Succulent, no. Whatever the first game I played was. Qwirkle, yeah, I mean Qwirkle I bought for $2. I don't think I'd pay full retail for it, just because I have a lot of games like that, and being abstract, I'm not going to go out of my way for it, but I got it for $2 at Goodwill, so that I'm happy with that price. So, have you played any of the games I mentioned today? If so, head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and share your thoughts on them. If not, come over there and let us know what new games you have played. We'd love to talk to you about those. You can reach out to me directly, brendan@rattleboxgames.com, or email me or send me a direct mail message in Board Game Geek. Wombat929 is my username there. If you'd like to play an asynchronous game with me, I play under the username Wombat929 on Board Game Arena, Boitajou, and yukata.de. Hit me up for a friendship and or challenge me to a game. Thanks for joining me on my walk today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.